I left school and I joined the army. A wee bit disillusioned with some issues at home and all that. I just felt I had to get away. I realised I didn't want to kill people, so I thought, right, I'm getting out of this.
Yep.
And so I came out of the army and I went into the job centre. I think I was like 17 or something, and there was a job for an apprentice hairdresser. So I went with my business plan with this idea, found a shop in the high street. I think it's still lying empty to this day, to be honest. And I went to the Prince's Trust for the loan, and they knocked me back. But it was a blessing in disguise, because I might have still made a success yet, who knows.
Just came too early for you, think?
I didn't have enough experience, It took me absolute ages to get the finance in place. Eventually got it, done the deal, borrowed a huge amount of money, done the deal on the Friday. COVID happened on the Monday. It's so weird, because when you think about it, you've known them, a good chunk of your clients, for some of them I've known them for decades, but I've never known them coming in the way like 4 months growth of hair all at the same time.
Hello and welcome back to the Built Different podcast with your host Stephen Pettigrew. My guest today is Alan Finlay. Alan is the owner of Rebel, a barbershop in Glasgow, but he's not the average barber. He's been in business for over 20 years and has built big businesses with 45 staff in his business, and has been through all the different phases and cycles over the last 20, 30 years, and has had to pivot and adapt and deal with all sorts of stuff, including the COVID situation. I wanted to bring Alan on because he's got loads of experience, loads of knowledge that he can pass on, and a really important lesson about being able to pivot and learn from previous mistakes. So, without further ado, let's get into the episode with Alan Finlay. Alan, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you on. How are you?
I'm great, Stephen. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem at all. Wasn't it too much bad a travel for you? Was it 5 minutes away?
Yeah, 2 minutes even, I would say, 2 minutes.
And you still took the car?
I still took the car. You see how cold it is in there?
It is cold. It's warming up now.
Chittering away when we're talking, did you?
The first guest I had this morning, we're doing a few today. We were chittering.
I'm glad to see you get the heat on.
Well, special guest, Yeah, but honestly, this morning we were chittering. I think something tripped somewhere.
Right.
So it was a long 45 minutes to try and get through it. But no, great to have you on, mate. Mm-hmm. I wanted you on the podcast for a few reasons, and this is a wee bit unusual for me, because usually when I'm with you, I'm looking at you through a mirror.
Aye, I'm usually looking in the back of your head.
Exactly. And before anybody gets any crazy ideas, I should mention that you're my barber.
Yes.
Which explains that one. But
excuse me.
It's all good, mate. But you're not just a barber. You've been in business for a long time.
Yeah.
You've had a few businesses over the years, as far as I'm aware. But one of the kind of main ones that you've had is Rebel, and was pretty big business. Back for a few years. I think you'd had like 3 or 4 stores, if I'm right. And we'll get into all of that. But where I wanted to start, mate, was early years. So I always find it quite interesting. People, sometimes it doesn't happen, but when sometimes people have a business, there's something in their early years that kind of triggers them to get into business. Maybe some kind of side hustle they had. Was there anything like that you had growing up? Anything at all?
I suppose on that point, when I think back to my childhood, my gran, she had a hotel. She was a bit of a businesswoman. She's quite sharp, and I always really looked up to her. So she had a hotel in Hamilton, and had a bar and rooms and stuff like that. And I always remember my granddad give me the keys to the Space Invader and the
Nice.
pool tables, and I got to go behind the bar and pull pints and that, when the place was closed after hours. And I think just being around the business side of it, and my gran had a house next door to the hotel, and she had a safe in the floor, and there was these wee kind of aluminium pots that all the cash got put in it, so I always used to get to pop them into the floor. So I think my gran was probably a big inspiration, I think, in a business sense. So as I kind of progressed through my years, I left school and I joined the army. A wee bit disillusioned with some issues at home and all that. I just felt I had to get away. So joined the army, moved down to England, near Bath it was, in a big old RAF base. And a lot of aspects of the army was really good. The discipline side of things, and there's a lot of things that you could learn, like other skills out with the kind of army skills. And that stuff was good, but I kind of got to the point where I realised I didn't want to kill people, so I thought, right, I'm getting out of this. And so I came out of the army and I went into the job centre. I think I was like 17 or something, and there was a job for an apprentice hairdresser. So I went, I could give that a go. So done that, loved it.
What appealed to you? What was it about that appealed to you at the time?
I don't know, I can't remember, to be honest. I think it was just, I've always been quite spontaneous. And I've always liked to do things a wee bit different as well. So back in the days, I mean, this is going back to the 80s. You know, if you were a male hairdresser, you were kind of inclined to be swinging one way, you know. So it was quite unusual for somebody like myself to kind of go into that field. But I thought I'd get a go, loved it. And it opened up this kind of social world for me that I was quite a shy kid, actually, up until I was about in my late teens. So that helped quite a bit. Getting out and socialising and going clubbing,
building your confidence and stuff,
all that kind of thing. And then the job itself was great, you know, really good experience. So I done that for a couple of years, and then my mum moved. My mum and my stepdad moved to a wee tiny place called Bowness, which is
it's not far from me.
Not far for you. So lived there for about a year. So there was a college in Larbert, actually. So I finished my hairdressing qualification there, and then I moved to Glasgow, and I stayed with a mate that I met through going out and stuff like that. A guy called Angus Roger, and he kind of put me up in his flat in Ibrox, and that's great. That was part of this big social circle that we all were kind of a big group of mates that were kind of developing there. And so I obviously had to find a job. So there was a wee barbershop in St Vincent Street that's no longer there anymore. In fact, do you know the old Bar One? The old Bar One?
Yeah.
It was next door to that. I think it's a Lloyd's Bank actually now.
Right.
So there's a wee pokey barbershop in there. And I'd never used clippers before in my life. It was always scissors and comb. So I blagged myself the job. And I had to kind of basically, I always remember my first client came in, and it was a flat top that he asked for. And I always remember he asked me to taper the back of his neck, and I'm like, what the fuck's a taper? I don't know what that is. So I was literally watching the guy right next to me how to cut hair with a set of clippers on my very first client in my first job in barbering. And but you got to remember, barbering in those days was pretty bad.
Right. Okay. So standards weren't quite so.
I mean, if you look back at the history of barbering, the 60s, 70s, 80s kind of killed the barbering industry because long hair was a fashion. So most men were going to hairdressers. So that meant all the money moved into the hairdressing world, which meant that the barbering side of things deteriorated really rapidly. And at the same time, especially during the 60s, hairdressers just grew. That was their kind of golden era, you know. You had all these big product companies, education, magazines. It was all the glitzy stuff was involved in the hairdressing side of things. So there was plenty of money in that field, especially in the education part of it. So that grew and grew and grew and grew over the next 30 years. Whereas barbering declined over that period of time. So when I get into this, it was 1990 maybe, something like that. And so like the place, my first place I worked in, the haircut was £3.75.
Wow.
And I think that was for a pensioner, right enough. So my hang-up was £4.
Right.
So I'm going to
It's
do
not that
it.
new. I can guarantee the audience
There's
that.
probably some places still charging £4. So I was in there for, I think I was in there for 6 months. Just cutting my teeth, learning how to use clippers and stuff like that. And then there was another barber shop round the corner on West Nile Street, City Barbers it was called. So I went there for a job, and my old boss, John Bonner, a brilliant guy and a big part of my, he's a big idol for me. I think he kind of helped me grow as a person.
Mentor,
Aye,
right.
really smart guy, really intellectual guy.
Yep.
But a kind of heart of gold as well, So we got on really well, and I ended up working in there for like 14 years, and he was I think I got made the manager when I was like 23. Sorry, before that, actually, I should mention, before I got to that point, I was really keen at this being my bonnet about to set my own business.
Right, okay.
So I went into the business gateway when I was like, 17, 18. I think I've been in a barbershop for 3 weeks or something. Aye. And so they done all these business courses. So I done one of the courses. I done a couple of courses actually. And one of them was showing you how to set up a business plan. And everything that was entailed in that. And that was great because it kind of gave you a focus of what your business should look like.
Yep.
And is it going to be profitable? So that allowed you, you could make guesstimates about how you envisioned the business to look like at the beginning and how it would grow over the years. And then you could also work out the monies and the money side of it to see if it would be profitable or not. So I done that course and then applied for a business grant. It was a Prince's Trust business grant. And I basically went to see a shop. I think it was the one and only shop I went to, and I wanted it. A typical kind of 19-year-old, didn't have a clue at that time. And so I went with my business plan with this idea, found a shop in the high street. I think it's still lying empty to this day, to be honest. And I went to the Prince's Trust for the loan, and they knocked me back. But it was a blessing in disguise, because I might have still made a success yet. Who knows?
Just came too early for you, think?
I didn't have enough experience. Right. I think that was the thing that really I probably needed more than anything else, was to go and cut my teeth and learn from other people, and know that there was a great amount of education out there for me to learn from, but at least to get started in. So I got knocked back for that, and then that's when I went for this other job. So I got this job in City Barbers with John, and it was a great place. We had a good team of people and learnt so many skills, like managing people through that job. And then I think
when you were doing that job, sorry, but were you doing that with the intention of trying to almost kind of be the second man and learn how to be a business person through? Like, was it intentional? Or was it just kind of?
I think I was just going with the flow. I think what John provided me there was a lot of respect. Because he made me his manager. Shop. It was a big shop for the time. In these days there was only 3 barber shops in the whole of the city centre, and the standard of barbers was just the kind of conveyor belt barber type. So that's get them in, get them out. Quantity over quality. And so I think when I was there with John, he gave me a lot of respect, and I don't know, he maybe seen something in me, and eventually I got to the point where he was just leaving me to run the whole business for him, pretty much. And I was I had a lot of good ideas, because there's a lot of things that I picked up for doing hairdressing that I could see that barbering was lacking, i.e. taking appointments, taking more time, charging more money,
Even probably the environment.
The environment,
yeah.
aye. I mean, again, there wasn't even any products in barbering. You had Brill Cream and Dax Wax.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever used Dax Wax.
I remember Brill Cream, but I don't remember
Dax Wax was like dipping your head in chip pan fat.
Right.
That was the kind of stuff you basically, I'm not kidding, you had to wash the hair, you had to wash it out the hair with fairy liquid. That was the deal. And most men wouldn't get the hair washed in these days, you know, so they would come in, their hair was caked with gel and all that sort of stuff. Sorry, that was the other product. They had the blue luminous gel, you know, stuff that lit up under UV light, that kind of stuff.
Before my time.
Before your time. So I think young guys would be surprised in how bad the hairstyles were back in those days.
Yeah.
So I'm in this place for 14 years, and I kind of learned all I could, really. I mean, I had to kind of I took a bit of the hairdressing techniques and I'd add that to my scissor work. But the clipper work I had to learn from scratch. So I sussed out different ways and how I could be efficient while I was working, and better techniques of cutting hair. But I always had a kind of drive to try and provide the best service I could in a short limited time. Because I mean, these days we only had 10 minutes to do the service, because that was just a done thing. There was nothing else before that. So I did mention to John about, you know, obviously maybe I should take appointments and charge more money. And there was a time, so towards my end of my tenureship in the City Barbers, the hair designs had just come into vogue. And so it was all tribal patterns, and I was putting faces in people's heads and the back of heads and stuff like that. So I was absolutely mobbed. I mean, I was queued at the door pretty much every day, and I was getting people coming in, and sometimes they were waiting like 2 hours just to get the haircut made, you know. And it was that case where you had a few waiting chairs, and the barber chairs were at either side of the waiting chair, so everybody was right in your face. And what you found was you'd get one guy, and then you get all his mates would come as well, so they'd all come in batches. So all these batches of young lads.
I was just going to say, like, this is obviously before social media, isn't it? So so you're getting that demand just through probably people referring you.
Yeah.
Or people, did you get a haircut?
Well, what I done was, so the digital camera came out, right? And so my first memory card was 8 megabytes.
Right.
And so I was taking pictures and then printing them at home, and then making a book with all these different hairstyles, all these different looks, especially the hair design. So I think I had a bit, you know the old-fashioned photo albums that you used to get. So it was them I was using. So I think I had about 3 or 4 of them set up in the shop, and so clients were coming in and were picking stuff out of that, and then I was itemising them, and I was putting prices on and times on. So at this point I was having to take a lot more time for the hairstyles, because some hairstyles were taking me 2 hours to do. In fact, I had Didier Agat, played for Celtic one time. He came in, and he got all these tram lines over his full head the day before an Old Firm game. Right. And
did you tell me you're a Rangers fan at that point, or?
Oh, I told him. Aye. And I mean, Rangers were good at that time, so
I
wasn't too rough on him. But he came in. It was like 2 hours, but then ended up I was coming in later at night, and he was coming in, and I was shutting the door, but there was people banging the window and all that. You know, I found out who it was, but went off track there a wee bit. So. Yeah, so I'd set all this up with these books and stuff like that. But I mean, I think probably I might still been there if John had been still alive. But sadly, he passed away, and then his wife and daughter took over the company. And let's just say we didn't have the best of relationships with those two. So I ended up leaving. And then there was a guy that I used to work with, and we set up a shop on Buchanan Street, actually. So he knew the landlord. So that enabled us to get this premises. It was a building that was due to be renovated, so we only had like a short lease on it, maybe 5 or 6 years or so. And so we ended up, we moved in there, and that was the start of I could implement my ideas. But unfortunately, my business partner, again, I knew I'd made a mistake as soon as I'd signed for the lease. So we built the business up, but it just wasn't working. It was like chalk and cheese, you know, that way.
You went to one direction, he went to somewhere else.
It was just silly stuff. It was silly stuff. Like, I mean, again, example, one of the girls that worked for us, she was great. She sold the most products and services in the company, and I was off on paternity leave having my first kid, and my ex-partner, he sacked her because he thought she was too pretentious because she was wearing sunglasses in the top of her head and a cardigan over her shoulder, and I was like, oh, but who the fuck cares?
Exactly. She's bringing the money in.
But I mean, like, what, fucking park your ego, mate. You know, put it to the side.
It's obviously working.
This is a business, you know. So that caused a big fracture between me and him, and he just stopped coming into work. And this went on for months and months and months, for about 6 months. So I had a good mate, Colin, asked him for a bit of advice and all that, and then he gave me a lot of good advice for that. So I spoke to the landlord, changed it, told him what was happening, we changed the lease over, I changed the locks, and then asked Colin if he was, because he was a financial advisor at the time, right. Quite astute with money and business and things like that. Good with people as well. So I asked Colin to be my business partner. So we'd a great partnership, and that was the beginning of Rebel. That's when we formed the company Rebel. And then, and the beauty between the partnership between me and Colin was in business, you need two different. I think if you've got a partnership, your partners need to be different set of skills. Yep. So he knew nothing about hair, so he left that to me. That was my baby, and I knew very little about business. So we left each other to do our own part of the company, and then we would obviously talk and communicate on the business side of things. So that helped us grow really, really quickly. So we then moved to Buchanan Street because that lease had came to its end, and we got our first shop in Union Street. The Union Street's a dire place these days, but back then in the night, that would have been 2005 or 6, I think that was. So we get this big shop right at Central Station, and it was thriving at that part of the city at the time. And we've done this really cool layout in the shop. We had 15 chairs in there. Yep. And then that's when I started thinking about, right, okay, want to take more time, want to charge more money, better quality staff, yep. Train all my staff. And that was my ethos all the way through.
And you probably attracted a better client as well 100%. By doing that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like, I mean, I think with a business, you've got to kind of think about what kind of market do you want to target. Yeah. You could try and target the whole market if you want, but I mean, it's a massive market then, isn't it? You don't necessarily need that. And
you've got some people who don't want to spend any more than, making this up, a tenner or 15 quid,
Well, I mean, in the days it was 8 quid. Right. It was like 5, 6, 8 quid was the going rate. I think our first opening price back in 2006 was, I think it was 15 quid, I think. With other barbers were doing £8. So we'd kind of doubled the price, but we're trebling the amount of time we're spending with clients.
But people automatically, it's a strange psychology thing with price, because people automatically associate, sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not, but more value with a higher price. There's some kind of psychology there where you spend more money, so must be a better haircut, must be this and that.
You're getting more value for money. And I think as long as you back that up with your service and your product or whatever it is you're selling, then you're going to win. So so we'd implemented all these this new kind of idea of taking appointments, charging more money, spending more time with the client, really working hard on customer service, and creating a really nice vibe in the place. You know, it was a really, really, really cool place.
Probably had really good energy, I'm guessing.
Was the energy, and it was brilliant. So we kept going in there, and I think at my peak, in that one shop, now with 15 chairs, but I had a lot of trainees, I had reception staff, with social media, with a shop manager. We had about, I think it was about 35, staff.
Right.
And in those days, it was staff.
Yep.
We were employing people, getting paying hourly rates and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But as time goes on, things change, and obviously we were really successful what we'd done, and then I get involved in doing like artwork. So I joined an art team with it was actually Colin. He put this email in front of me, and it was from the National Hairdressing Federation. They were running a competition in London for an elite barber team.
Right, okay.
So, fuck it, let's give that a try.
That sounds like me.
How we going? So I had to take a model to London to Mayfair, and I blagged some clothes out of the Belstaff shop.
Right.
They kindly borrowed me clothes for this event. Got a big handsome lad as my model, and we ventured down to London to Mayfair, and so we got to this, and went to this big massive place, this big swanky place in Mayfair, and I think there was about 30 or 40 people there applying for it, and so we'd basically style the hair and then do like a 2-minute presentation, and then we get interviewed by a panel of 3. So it was a bit like X Factor. There was these 3 judges.
No buzzers then? No,
there was no buzzers, thankfully. So I think out of 5 people, I think I got the gig.
Brilliant.
And done that for a few years. So that was great. I was getting to travel about the UK. You got to bear in mind there was no conventions, there was no barbering conventions or anything like that. It was all hairdressing stuff. So we were this first barber art team, probably, I don't know, definitely probably in Europe. It was only really the US that was ahead of barbering at that time. So we went to like Salon International, done stuff in Cardiff, Celtic Manor. There was tons of different events we were doing. So that was a great experience as well. I was doing photo shoots.
Did that give you exposure to different techniques and way to market yourself and all that sort of stuff?
100%. And also working, so it ended up being 3 of us eventually that was left. I think there was some other guys, but eventually as time went on, it got whittled away. And then the National Hairdressing Federation, I think our first year we had a budget of 10 grand to just do all these photo shoots and stuff. But I think we blew most of it on. We went with what was this guy's name again? This photographer. He was involved in Britain's Next Top Model.
Right, okay.
So there was a series on the TV. So he was a photographer for that. So we went to his studio in East London, and it was just at the time, I think the Olympics was just coming to London. So they were doing all this East Ending up. So he had a big amazing studio, and I always remember their camera, it was 150 grand, this German thing.
Wow.
So we had all these, we had like 10 models from the model agencies, and they were like 500 quid a pop for each of the models. We had this.
So this budget's just getting whittled away constantly. Like nothing left.
We had a wardrobe guy who he sounded and he looked a wee bit like Danny Dyer.
Right, aye.
You know, so he was a proper geezer. She turned up with this big suitcase full of all these clothes and all that. So we done this this photo shoot. Get some amazing pictures. Worked with fellowship as well. Actually joined the fellowship, and we've done stuff with them. So that's a big organisation that has been at the forefront of hairdressing, pushing hair, the kind of creative element of hairdressing for decades. So then the National Hairdressing Federation, their funds were short. Something had happened and there was no money left, so they were basically pulling the funds for the Barbers Elite. So me, Foxy, and a guy called James Beattie decided to set up our own team. So we called it the Bomb Squad.
Right, okay.
So Bomb stood for Barbers of Modern Britain. And we had so it was a Scotsman, an Englishman, and a Welshman, and we used a Union Jack flag, the actual flags as our cutting gowns on the stage,
right?
Because it looked brilliant. Like when we were on the stage, it's nothing at all to do with Rangers whatsoever. I don't even like the Union Jacks, but that's another story.
In certain places up here, you probably get booed for doing that, you know.
But so we just self-funded, and then we were getting to do a lot of gigs all over the place. Made some good pals in Amsterdam, and we'd done stuff. I done stuff over there.
This was all the time when Rebel was still growing as well.
Rebel was still functioning as a business, and I'm just going away for these wee jollies every now and again, every 2, 3, 4 months or so, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. So I've done that for about 12 years, and then we opened a second shop in Finnieston. So Finnieston was this new up and coming area. So we managed to get a shop in there right at the beginning, and that took us ages to get this place. So the landlords, we'd agreed a deal with the landlords, and then it went all quiet, and I never heard anything from him. And then next thing we heard, he gave it to somebody else.
Right, okay.
And I was
this
like,
is a prime location, I bet.
Prime location. So then the shop lay empty for another year, and then the landlord came back to us. So similarly what had happened, a dentist had come in and offered him more money on rent. So the landlord came back and says, look, I tell you what, if you pay another $5,000 a year, you can have it. So what had happened, what eventually we found happened, the dentist had pulled out and he came back to us. So anyway, we bit his hand off it and we took it. And the first, we set everything up, spent loads of money, got all the training done and all that, and then we had a fire. And that shut us for a year. And then it took us another year to open back up again. And at this point, I think we had about 45 staff, something like that.
For barbering, that's massive.
Yeah. And so that was a success as well, and then that was going well, and then I got involved with Kelvin College. What I really wanted to do was set up a barber school so that I could feed the shop, an academy, so I could feed the shops as we expanded. So
was that one of the hardest things about growing that size of business, was trying to staff it?
I think it was getting more difficult because at this point there was more competition coming up, so there was better quality barbers starting to open up, and obviously that meant that the pool of really good quality barbers was low. And I always trained my staff anyway. That was always my thing, and I was doing it all in house. I was doing it for the shops, but as a business venture, we could have done that and also sold courses as well. So teamed up with Kelvin College, and we set up a place up in the grain store just in where is that again? Just across the water, where the old Bartley's building is. So I had this wee triangle of shops. So done that for a few years, and then I think at this point COVID happened. So that was
for barbers, that was lethal.
Man, that was a reality check. That was, and I just totally changed the game. Basically
shut overnight.
Well, to get an idea, that my turnover and so obviously with that period of 4 months was shut down. Oh, sorry, before I should say that, so in between this, my business partner Colin, he was like maybe a year before it, he was kind of, you know, he kind of had enough.
Right.
He was wanting to go and do something else. So we were planning the split. Everything was all amicable, you know. I was going to buy him out. Took me absolute ages to get the finance in place. Eventually got it. Done the deal. Borrowed a huge amount of money. Done the deal on the Friday. COVID happened on the Monday. So I was like, oh my God, what is going to happen now? You know,
Yeah.
so
You had at that point, you had no idea what was going to happen.
No,
I think everybody at that time probably thought this will be over in a week.
yeah. That, honestly, that's what I thought at the time. I says, you know, we'll get this all cleaned up and we'll be back open. But 4 months later, we still weren't open, and then in between that, my missus was pregnant with my new wee baby daughter. So she was due to be born in April, and I think we were due to open for the first lockdown. Originally, I can't remember the exact dates, but whatever date Nicola Sturgeon had said a date, our due date for the baby was a week after that. So I thought, right, that's fine. And then the date was changed. It was brought earlier.
That's right.
4 weeks.
That's right.
So I was like, that's even better. So then, I know, sorry, at this point, also on top of that, I'd opened another shop during COVID. Because
that was a brave move.
well, I'd planned to open. Sorry, I'd planned to open my shop during COVID, because my thinking was that the way this was going, I knew the city centre shop was in big trouble, because there was no people that lived in the city centre, and everybody was all working from home. So that meant my turnover was going to fall off a cliff, which it did. So I was thinking ahead. I was thinking, right, I need to find shops that are near residential, you know, and affluent areas, somewhere that I could survive. So my brain was always 5 moves ahead, trying to, you know, work out what I could do. So during the lockdown, I also decided to refurbish the 2 shops that I had at that point. Excuse me. So I taught myself how to use some 3D modelling software, SketchUp, because what had happened was before the lockdown started, I'd got some quotes in to refurbish the city shop, and I get quoted something like 47 grand or something like that. So COVID happened. I went, right,
I need to do this myself here.
I've got God knows how much time. I may as well do this. So, and at this point, we were getting some money for the government and stuff like that. So I'll reinvest that into the company. So that's what I did. I taught myself this 3D modelling software, and we actually refitted the big shop, which I got a quote for 47. Ended up doing it for 6 grand, exactly to the spec that I was looking for. I learned all these new skills, plumbing, electricity, joinery, all that sort of stuff, which was good. So then, so back to open it back after COVID. So the date was moved back with Nicola Sturgeon, back a bit earlier with Nicola Sturgeon. And then my baby decided to come 4 weeks early. So I'm sitting on the Sunday, the night before we open up, the day before we open up on the Monday, doing all my health and safety, making sure all the COVID stuff was in place and all that. So I had to go and speak to all the staff and the city shop.
Social
and then
distancing and all that stuff.
I was over in the finishing shop, and then I got a phone call, and it was my missus. The waters had broke, and she was on the way to the hospital. So I was like, shit, my baby's coming. So I had to basically finish that meeting really, really quickly, and then head to the hospital. Baby daughter was born, and then and she was born with jaundice, so it worked out okay, because obviously in times there were restrictions in the hospitals as well. So, but the hospital staff were amazing, and they were going to keep her in for a week anyway. And I knew that first week of opening the business up would be the only week that would make any money. Because I knew that once she had done maybe that week to 10 days, the volume of people that were dying to get their haircut for 4 months, once that was done, you wouldn't be able to see, I wouldn't see anybody again for a long period of time.
Yeah.
So we had planned, every member of staff, there was 50 members of staff at this point in the city shop, was working from 8 in the morning to 8 at night, so we could grab that volume of clientele. So not only had my baby was just born,
You had all the stress of
I had
starting
all
up
the
in COVID
stress,
again.
the COVID stuff and all that. So anyway, they went to the hospital. Baby was born really quickly. She was fine and dandy. She had jaundice, so they wanted to keep her in, so they had to keep her in the incubator. So my missus was like, look, just go to work. Just go to work. And the hospital, look, you can come, once you've done your shift, you can come up and visit. So it worked out great. So it meant I could go. So I think by the time I left the hospital, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. I had to go home, try and get some sleep, up at 7 o'clock to get into work, and then this volume of people that was coming in.
Oh, it's desperate stations.
Unreal. I mean, it's so weird because when you think about it, you've known them, a good chunk of your clients, for some of them I've known them for decades, but I've never known them coming in with like 4 months growth of hair all at the same time.
It's funny you say that, right? So I think I've told you this story before, but when same idea, I couldn't get my hair cut for ages, same as the rest is, and Sophie, with no choice but Sophie had to try and cut my hair, and we didn't have any equipment, because even at that time when you tried to order clippers online on Amazon,
gold dust.
you couldn't get them. Right, so the only thing we could get away with was dog clippers. So she's never cut hair before in her life, so she's cutting my hair with scissors that would my
chewing your hair.
Oh my god. But the worst thing was the dog clippers. When I looked in the mirror, she's got different gradients and lengths. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Oh my god, it was terrible. I think back, it's funny now thinking back, but that must have happened to so many people.
Everybody was having a go at it, wasn't they?
Aye.
I mean, I was getting clients texting me saying, I'm outside your house, can you try to cut my hair? I'm like, fuck off, it's a fucking a pandemic.
I remember
go and learn to play the guitar or something.
See after that episode, right, I remember it's fine to talk about it now, right, but there was barbers coming into folks' houses.
Oh,
10 year mates at a time, right? You're next. Do
you remember all the football players always had fresh haircuts?
Aye, exactly.
You know, because they were still playing football, weren't they?
Of course they were.
And they were still turning up with their wee fades and all that.
Actually, everybody on the telly, even your celebrities and presenters, they were all.
That's what I mean. It was a big, massive hypocrisy, the whole thing. You know,
100%.
And we were all made to believe that we should sit indoors and just twiddle our thumbs.
Ruin your livelihood, ruin business.
Really, like the government was doing in London at the time.
Aye.
I can sit and fucking drinking champagne on our expenses and stuff, you know.
Aye, right at the height of it as well. It was bad. And the more time goes past, the more and more stuff comes out of washing, you know. So
the thing that really annoyed me about that period was it started getting really stupid. I mean, they were taping up park benches. You weren't allowed to go outside.
Do you remember the one that was like, you're not allowed background music because it could spread COVID? It's like, what? The one that really got me, right, was I think it was you had to walk into a restaurant with your mask on, sit down at your table like this, take the mask off, eat your dinner. If you want to go for a pee, put the mask back on, walk to the toilet. It's like, what? How does that make any sense? It was very draconian.
It was. You know, especially when the Prime Minister's sitting having parties at number 10, and he's got the face to come on the telly and tell people to stay indoors and wear your mask and don't do this and don't do that. I thought, you pile of shitheads, man. Absolute shitheads.
That's politics in this country, isn't it?
Yeah.
So at that point in time, then you had obviously, as a business owner that time, you've still got overheads because although you might have got some support with the government potentially, but as you mentioned, you've had to invest a bit. You've had some issues during that time, but you still had to pay people. Did that have an effect on the business at that point?
100%. 100%. I mean, if it wasn't for like the bounce back loan, I don't know what I would have done. I mean, there was money that came through the grants and stuff, and that helped me survive. But that was it. It was just survive. And then obviously the big problem that I had, so obviously we opened back up, and I had that volume for a week, 10 days, and I basically done a month's worth of trade in that period of time. And then but then my turnover dropped by 75%, probably even 80% actually, when I think about it. So that obviously caused a massive issue going forward. And then the other problem I had was, because there were so many barbers I'd been working from home, I think a lot of them just went, fuck that. I'm not going to work for anybody else now. I'm going to go and keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to go and get myself a wee unit, or work from home, or work out my garage. And so that pool of barbers started to shrink massively, you know, especially quality barbers. And if I'm in my system, I'm training people. Even if I took somebody out of college, I still need to spend another 6 months to a year with that person before they're really fully up to speed. And then you need to, when you take somebody new on, it maybe takes you in for 6 months to a year for them to build a clientele up. So, like, you know, that just wasn't making sense anymore. And then I was losing a lot of staff as well through poaching. A lot of businesses that had set up, and it was just all stabbing folk in the back and things like that. And I just thought, this is getting really ugly now, you know. And I think that's what money does to people. It makes people desperate.
Money's like it's an amplifier of whatever. If you're an arsehole, it'll make you a bigger arsehole. If you're a good person, make you a better person.
Yeah, I think integrity was definitely lost on a lot of people. And you know, and I'd always tried to help people, and my main focus was making sure my staff still had a job. But then slowly people were dangling carrots, because a lot of folk that had worked for me had direct contact with the guys that I worked with. So I was losing a lot of staff. I was hemorrhaging a lot of staff, and then that's when I decided, right, okay,
resize this a wee bit.
We need to rethink this whole thing. And sorry, at this point as well, I'd opened the Stirling shop.
Right, I did Stirling.
So
right, okay.
In between all that, right. You know, this is me trying to speculate to accumulate. So I'm trying to. I found a cracking wee unit in Stirling, and decided that I was going to take a gamble and try and, at least if I could, because I knew in my heart of hearts I was going to have to let my very first my city centre one go, and that was where I had to really park my ego, and I had to really bury the emotional baggage that I had attached to that. So this Stirling one was on the bank burner, and then I got the premises, got it all kitted out. And then that was, I think we had a second lockdown, didn't we? So that was the second lockdown. I think that happened. I'd done that, opened that one. So then during that second lockdown, I'd done the refit of this new place in Stirling. So I was travelling through there every day. One of the lads that worked for me was really keen to work, to manage a shop. So I says, well, look, do you want this? I mean, I'm taking a punt on you here. I'm investing a lot of money into this business. Do you want this? This is going to be your baby. So he said, yeah. So done that, took the risk, and then after a period of time, then later on down the line, I closed the city shop, moved what staff I had left for the city shop into the Finniston branch, and then I just run with the two shops, the city one. I still had the Barber Academy, but then eventually closed that as well, and then I had the Stirling shop. So, and then the Stirling shop started giving me issues. The lad that run the shop wanted to work didn't want to work Saturdays anymore. Couldn't get any staff, and I'm like, right, okay.
And it's a wee bit further away, so it's harder to manage because it's a wee bit further away.
So I seen the writing on the wall, and I just pulled the plug on that one straight away. I didn't let that fester any longer. And then I closed the Barber Academy. So all my full focus then was just on Finniston. So then kept going there for up until January, actually, last year. And it was going all right, but then the issue I was still getting people still poaching staff and dangling carrots in front of your staff. And the problem was, the other issue that we had to change the business model in terms of how you employ people. So basically we had to offer chair rental contracts. This was to combat this people working from home. So folk wanted a chair rental contract to pay a rent for the space. and basically do their own taxes and all that, collect their own money. Which is great from a tax point of view, but from a business point of view, it's an absolute death knell because I could not control the hours anymore. So I couldn't control lunches, holidays, when they started, when they finished, what days they worked. I'm trying to run a business 96. You know, the square peg doesn't fit in a round hole.
So all the way through that, I'm maybe getting this number wrong, 20, 30 years. The model's changing, the whole landscape's changing all the time, and you're having to adapt. And it sounds like, from what you've said there, Alan, that your business partner leaving at the time he did, and obviously the fact you've had to borrow a bit of money to buy him out. Yeah. It sounds like those two things were pretty severe at the time and obviously impacted.
I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think so, because the money that the shop was making would have taken care of all that. Right. That would have, I would actually been in a really good position had COVID hadn't happened. Because I still had a big team. I think that the big problem with the COVID, it wasn't just the fact that
changing
the shops were shut.
Mindset.
It was changing the mindset, and it was changing the mindset how barbers were getting paid. And as soon as barbers realised that, because the other aspect you've got to be aware of is when you've got a shop, your clientele, okay, there'll be a certain amount that's going to come to Rebel, but people are individualistic. They want to go to a Pacific barber because they like the way they cut their hair, they like their chat, they like the perfume they wear, or whatever it is, for number of reasons. So, like in the old days before you had Instagram or social media, you know, okay, somebody would leave, but you know, you didn't need to tell the clients wouldn't necessarily find out where they had went to, so they would just come back to the shop and then find another barber. So you would always lose some, but you know, you wouldn't lose what you know. Now, if somebody's got a client bank that they gain predominantly from working under the Rebel brand, it's obviously
you can take that with them.
They were taking a big chunk of that with them, you know. So, so that was becoming a massive issue, and that's what I felt in the finisher shop that 3-year period. I'd survived COVID, got through that, but now I had to deal with this new payment system and new working environment of how people were getting paid and how I was getting the staff, and you know, and I'm still taking on people, training them up, but what I was finding it hard to keep them for any longer than 6 months a year, because people were seeing that I've trained them up and then like, oh, I see you're a Rebel, do you want to come on my face? So people just DMing, so that's the other aspect, not just the clients, but other barbers and other shops can then target your staff.
And also the barbers would know they're trained to high standard going through you as well. So they're getting somebody
exactly
good.
So I'd built a rod for my own back. So that's when I kind of came to the conclusion. I went, fuck this. I ain't doing that. And a lad, Richie Martin, that a good mate, he was one of my first prodigies. And he'd left, this was way before COVID and that, he'd left and done it in a great way, took me and Colin for a meal and stuff like that, and said, look, I want to do my own thing, and we totally respected that, and we were like, look, anything we can do to help you, just let us know. So we always stayed mates through that, and so he had the same issue during COVID as well, so he actually shut his shop a lot earlier than me. And he found a place in Finniston that was this wee private studio in the Hive building. So I think, what is it, November or something, 2 Novembers ago, October maybe, I was getting to see him, and I'm having all this issue, and it was just getting me down. It was really getting me down. It was getting me depressed, and it was didn't matter what I seemed to do, it just wasn't working, and I knew I had to change it. And I just had to let go of whatever I had before. So that I went in to see Richie in his place, man. It was cool. It's got a wee bar in it. It's all chilled out. And I went, this is it.
This is it for me.
This is it. So me and Richie had a conversation, crunched out all the numbers and stuff like that, and it was a no-brainer. An absolute no-brainer.
Less headaches, more money.
My overheads in the finisher store were going for like 9 grand a month. To the new place was 500 quid. And I'm like, this is just mad. So I decided, told all the staff, I think it was November or start of December last year. No, sorry, the year before. That was leaving. So I gave them a good 6 to 8 weeks to find something. I allowed them to tell their clients where they were going. The only thing I said to them, do not take any data off of my Booksy account because I'm responsible for that. So 2 weeks before we closed, what happened? They all started harvesting the data from it. Do you know what I mean? So it ended in a really poor way. And then they were making me I'm the bad guy that, like, oh, you should be beginners, all that stuff. And I'm like... So
I've been through some, bad situation in business myself. We've had to let a lot of staff go, and I think back to one occasion in particular, I had to stand in front of a room of 30, 40 people and make them all redundant. And you think you're doing the right thing, and you think people that you've known for 20 odd years would respect that you're trying to do the right thing, but as soon as they're at the door, you're the worst guy in the planet.
100%.
And, you could have left it longer to no tell them, but you try to tell them as early as possible. So you need staff to grow a business in a lot of respects, but they can also be a real pain in the arse.
Well, I think it's got to work both ways, isn't it? I mean, staff can't expect you to look after them if you don't look after the business. And that's the thing. As soon as that, as you say, that line is crossed, that they're not going to work for you, they don't give a shit.
Don't care about you.
No respect. Right. So and I find that I found that quite a hard pill to swallow. Because I certainly never felt that way about my staff. No. Because you're actually, people that appreciate you're actually doing a lot for them. Whether it's paying for doing a job, right? But then it's all the other added stuff with it. Oh, I need a shot of the car. I need to get away early today. I need to, it's all these little things that. Yeah, I've got problems at home. I've got this happening. Any chance I can get this short term, this short notice like holiday or whatever. There's numerous things that I could catalogue that you help people out, and you try and bend your rules a wee bit to accommodate if somebody's. Does get forgotten about though. Aye, it does, totally. Goes out the window. So, I would have thought that I might have had a wee bit of respect for, for training people up and getting them their first jobs and that. That didn't make any difference. So I'm at peace with that. I'm at peace with that now. And I've moved into my new place, and I wish I'd done it. If I had been an absolute bastard of a guy, I should have shut the doors, started COVID, and went and done that straight away. And I would have saved myself a lot of grief, cost myself a lot of tens of thousands of pounds of debts and stuff like that. Less stress, everything. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, I'm in a good place now. Been there for almost a year now. Absolutely love it. I work less hours. I make more money. I can finish when I want, start when I want, manage my system. I'm probably more busier now than I've ever been. No staff. I'm back to doing in an art team and stuff like that. I was recently in China. Going to ask you about that. Me and Richie, we just done a wee trip over there. So that the aspect of all these things is great because I've now got this. The only thing that when I started out in business, my idea was build a brand, get loads of shops, get to near retirement age, sell the business, enjoy my retirement. So obviously that's the one thing that's been taken away now. But I just need to adapt, and I've got other ideas. I've got other things in the pipeline that I'm looking at and working on that can hopefully provide maybe that stability for my retirement. As we wrap up here, Alan, I wanted to ask you about that because that's one of the reasons I wanted you on, right? Because you're not just average barber, as I've found out in this conversation, right? But you mentioned about not being able to sell the business for all the reasons we've spoken about. But one of the things you are working on that I'm aware of is obviously potentially going into China, going to other markets, and potentially building some kind of online academy. And I might be a wee bit off on this, but that's a sellable asset in itself. Once you get to a certain size, you're not then restricted to just where you work. You don't necessarily need a lot of staff to run that type of online business now.
Even the guys here in the studio might be able to help you with that
Maybe have a
potentially.
wee conversation.
But is that, am I on the right track with that?
Potentially, right. At the moment, I'm looking at a few ideas. Obviously, I'd done this thing in China, so I was working with a good friend of mine, Mark van de Harry from Amsterdam. So he's got a brand called Barber Society that he's trying to license that in China. So we were over there doing a show at the World Hairdressing Congress. So we were the first ever barbers to be invited to that. And obviously you know that China is a manufacturing giant in the world. So I've got an idea about creating a product range of tools, like equipment tools, like hairdryers, clippers and things like that. So that's something I'm looking at. The other aspect from being in China that I've spoken with Mark about just briefly, about maybe there's an avenue of doing some sort of education within the Chinese market, because the Chinese barbering is kind of where we were 20 years ago. So, and that's a huge market, you know, it's massive. Excuse me. So that's an aspect that there's a couple of avenues there that I'd like to do it, but the online thing is definitely something that could be doable as well. I mean, I've done some stuff where I was looking at creating courses for that in the past, but I just never really had the time to do it. And the editing side of it and stuff like that, that's something that I don't want to be involved in.
Totally.
Had a wee shot at that, and it's just a nightmare. And I can see how you're smelling, because you've got to quite hear all the boys are doing the hard work behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so there's plenty like new avenues that I'm looking at now to.
And you're nimble enough now that you can go and explore them. Whereas
That's
before, when you had like all that overhead and staff, you couldn't think about. Oh, he's phoned in sick.
Far too much. Your head's in too many spaces. And I think now that minimising that, and then I can really focus on one thing at a time. So whatever one of those avenues I choose to take next, probably decided in the next few months.
Amazing. So wrapping up, mate. I think the audience will have got a lot of value from that, because it's a real story. There's a lot of different cycles in there as well that you've had to kind of navigate, and now you've pivoted again and you're going a slightly different direction, which again, it's that resiliency, having gone through all of that. If people want to get in touch with you, or they want to get the haircut, or they want to work with you, they want to invest in you, have a chat with you, what's the best way for somebody to contact you?
Well, I'm on Instagram. So my personal Instagram, which is like is just Alan Finlay. And then you've got Rebel Rebels at Instagram as well, and we've got a website there as well. You can book me on through Booksy or through the website. There's links in that. There's also links on the Instagram as well. But the one thing I would like to probably add, I think anybody, it doesn't matter what business you get into, you're always going to have ups and downs. I mean, that is, if you're serious about getting into business, you have to be prepared to get knocked down. Constantly. And what makes a difference if you can pick yourself back up again, find a new path, adapt, overcome any kind of obstacle that come to you. That's, to me, that's what success is. It's not so much making money and things like that.
It's no linear, and like, it's a great point you make, because even I've mentioned this a few times in different podcasts, but the biggest entrepreneurs in the world have had multiple failures, like constantly. In fact, they almost celebrate it.
That's what you learn the most from, isn't it? Just from failing and doing stuff. And I think that probably the only bit of advice I would give MD is, for what I learned from myself, was parking my ego. Get the ego parked. If you're getting into business to be successful, then don't let your ego get in the way of making rash decisions and silly mistakes that come for the side of your ego, rather than that's the side for your business brain. Yeah,
because sometimes the hardest decision is the toughest one, as you've mentioned, and the best one, because if you had made that decision at the time during COVID just to cut ties with everything,
I'd have been the best thing for me.
Aye.
The best thing for me.
Again, at that time in the world, at a point in time, you don't know. Nobody knew what was going on at that time.
No, exactly. So, but that is what it is, and I think the main thing is now I'm in a good place, and my business is successful, and I'm looking forward to the future.
Aye, and you know, I'm excited for you, and we've had several chats every time I'm in, but there is a big opportunity for you and the business going forward, because there is a wee niche, there's a wee gap in the market, and you know, might be somebody listening to this that can potentially help you with that as well. So
yeah, I'd be prepared to listen to anybody that's got want to get involved in it. I mean, it's something that I don't know enough about, but I'd be certainly, if there was somebody that was interested in partnering up with me, I'd be keen to hear their ideas.
Amazing. Alan, it's a pleasure having you on, my friend.
Thank you very much.
I'll see you next week.
I'll see you next week.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for listening to this episode. As always, guys, if you found value from this, please remember to hit subscribe and share with someone who might get value from it. If you want to carry on this conversation, the best places to find me are at Stephen Pettigrew Investor on LinkedIn, and also on our brand new website, monopolycapital.com. I'll see you soon.